So, real quick, yesterday's results you can see down there. We had draws on the top three boards there: Bardia versus Shanky, Serrana versus Aragaisi, Amin Tabatabaei versus Aiden Suleimanli, and then we had one win for Volodar Murzin, 17-year-old Russian teenager, over the early leader of the tournament, Chitambaram Arvind, who was one game away from 2,700 and from winning the tournament. He was in the sole lead, and then he blundered away a winning position against Daneshvar Bardia and lost it. Lost again yesterday, just plummeting from the tournament of his life to maybe a normal result in a moment. We'll see. He's got one more game to go today to either slide or recover. But he's kind of out of the discussion for first place after two losses in a row. And it's Volodar Murzin who joins Sam Shankland and Daneshvar Bardia in a three-way tie for first going into this round. Let's open up some more games here because Daneshvar Bardia, who forced a 9-move draw with white yesterday, is rewarded today with black against Arjun Aragaisi. So he will now scrabble under tough circumstances to try and hold on to this tournament. And one of the big joys of this tournament has been watching Arjun just give the most desperate, violent, and motivated chase that we've ever seen in a tournament, pretty much since losing in round 2. He got clocked by the Greek American Grandmaster Nicholas Theodorou, and ever since then he has been chasing. His games have been really exciting. And here he is, half a point off the lead, still in the last round with the white pieces. He's faced some strong opposition, and drawn a couple games. He couldn't win every single game. You can see that there's limits to what you can do just with the force of your desire and your overpowering skills. There are still other players, and they bring their own force and skills and all that, right? So I'm gonna replace this with now today's pairings. So here we're gonna have Aragaisi versus Bardia on board 3. Let's see what we've got on board 3. On board 3, we've got Mike Sudlu and Tabatabaei have already drawn before we could even get to it. Hiss, boo, poop on you. Very mature. And let's find another matchup. Suleimanli Serrana. You can see I spent a lot of time rhyming with little kids. From that one there. Ugh. That is awful, bestie. Welcome to Daylight. Hey, Manish. Hey, Umang. Welcome to the show. I'm trying to give a proper warning to everybody that the show is not going to be of high quality today. The kids don't have school today. I didn't schedule this stream. I'm just going to pop on now and then when I can, basically. I'm going to go deal with stuff with the kids or the kitchen or whatever. I'll pop on for a moment. Look at the games a little bit, pop off, deal with what I got to deal with, pop back on. That's how it's going to be. It's like, popcorn chess, like Nepo would complain. Okay. Let's see. Should we look for a game that looks interesting specifically instead of just what's on the top boards? What's on the top boards the last round or two has been kind of, drawish, barrage. Maybe Salem and Vokadov might play a game. Look at this, already a draw between Cheetah and Abhimanyu Puranik. Cheetah was just ready to give up on this event. Ivan Zemlyansky, has thrown down another gauntlet here against Leon-Luc Mendonca. The kids will give us a battle, right? This is one of the reasons why we need to replace those stupid, boring round robins full of established players who are just clutching onto their ratings with thousands of draws in a row, and replace them with these teenagers who actually want to play chess. All right? Look at this. Playing a dragon. Playing a real dragon. Wow. Oh, I guess it was a dragon dwarf as well. A6, bishop d3, and then switches to the dragon. White tries to play the Yugoslav attack anyway, just with the bishop on d3. Sure. Fair enough. Will there be tie breaks? I don't know the tie break situation myself. Sorry. See above note. This is not quite a professional broadcast. Just stumbled in here 15 minutes late. No prep. Don't know anything about the players. Kaisi, Mendonca versus Zemlyansky. We'll just call him Ivan for today. We're going to get to know him on a first-name basis, Zemlyansky here. All right, so among the games we've picked, do we have enough young blood? We've got Mergen as a kid. Aragaisi just turned 20, borderline kid, right? Bardia's a kid. Suleimanli's a kid. Mendonca's a kid. Ivan's a kid. Yes, we have more than 50% kids on these boards, so there should be some playing. Yeah. There were like 3 or 4 players in this tournament who weren't GMs when it started. By the end, there'll be 1 or 2 less. Siddharth, like Jagadeep or something like that from Singapore. I think 17 years old. Their newest and youngest grandmaster from a small, city-state. From the polis of Singapore. So what else? There was one other game here. Oh yeah, I was thinking maybe we should have Salem versus Volkov open too, right? Maybe, just maybe. I won't put it as the main game just yet, but I'll have it open so I can keep my eye on it. What other matchups do we have today? We've got Vladislav Artemyev with 1 win and 7 draws. Man, ultra solid at this tournament. Mishra against Gupta. Yesterday, Mishra drew with Zemlyansky fairly quickly but sharply. There's Jagadeep, former IM, against Sindarov. Hey, Memphis Reigns. Hey, Abdul. Chess Latte, hi. Of course, I root for all my Dojo draft picks. Exactly, Ghost. Hike managed to lose what had to be a winning position against the Turkish kid, and I think Hans Niemann lost against Shamsidin Volkov. I can root for that too, guys, because Kostya took Hans Niemann on his junior team. So go on down, Hans. Go on down. Also, that means there was some logic in the world, right? Because he was playing minus a rook, if you guys remember this game from yesterday. This is where we left it. Complete madness of a game. Whoops. Rook takes d4. Knight takes to defend the queen on c2. Trade. Bishop e5. Doesn't even move the king. Wow, the king totally disrespecting that bishop. And the king runs towards the bishop. We've never seen such folly before. He repeats the position. Hans avoids a repetition in this lost position. G6. What country does that move come from? That was something must be wrong with their relay. They're making moves that make literally no sense. E6, leaving the rook. There's no way that's really how the game ended, is there? No, okay, here's how the game actually was played. Right, black took it. That makes sense. Black retreated. That makes sense. Sometimes the moves get so bad that you just have to imagine they're wrong. You can't let yourself go completely insane trying to understand why the players played moves, you know, where they're like just hanging their rooks and their pawns and their kings and stuff. You know, like at some point you just have to say, enough. The broadcast is messed up. How did Hans just get counterplay there? That was disturbing. You can't even take on d5 because e4 wins your rook. Oh, whoops, he hung his pawn. So much for the counterplay. Oops. That was definitely a blunder. He didn't see that move. Otherwise, surely he would trade on e3, you know, play bishop d4, keep fighting. He was nowhere near ready to resign. And then he blundered this, and as Shanky would say, you know, moment of silence for the inanimate objects in Hans's room, in his hotel room, right? When this happens. Knight f4, I guess you'd play rook takes, defending the knight. And after pawn takes rook, the knight would escape while eating. Yeah. All right. On we go. Rest in peace, the hotel, exactly. I told you it would be a bad broadcast, but at least we got one joke in, right? We always have that. At least we have that. This game here, by the way, folks, also absolutely insane and illogical conclusion. ADs was getting destroyed by Hike. You know, lost one pawn after the next, He lost like 6 pawns in a row or something like that. Managed to give 5,000 checks, but none of them decisive. The king ran from the queen side to the king side, from the king side to the queen side. And he went from being down 1 pawn to being up 4 pawns against 0. So I guess that's 5 pawns in a row blundered. And then at some point, somehow, he's got nothing left. His king is completely open, no structure, nothing. Yeah, this move here attacked his queen, his rook, and his knight. That was a heavy blow. I don't think he reckoned on that move somehow. But this really happened. This isn't a relay error. And he collected the rook, the queen, the knight, the everything. That was shocking. That's, you know, kids not giving up right there. That was some unbelievable sticking it out. You used to see stuff like that sometimes before they had 30-second increments, but it's been a long time since I've seen a super GM just hang all their pieces like that. So tough one. And then a game that may have been logical was this Magsudlu game, but this one is a full course. We're not going to blitz through the thing. This one is an interesting game to study at some point if we want to. It was a game where White actually, I think, had an advantage in the opening, and it's truly a very interesting battle. We're going to leave that for later, and we're going to turn to today now. So on to today, right? And who are you all rooting for to win today's tournament? Maybe I could do a poll. Let's see if I can figure this out. Poll. Who are you rooting for to win today? And let's see, who else is in the running but behind? Aragaisi. Let's put Suleimanli as the last option. Or Serrana? Suleimanli. I only have room for 5, so allow additional votes? No. Time, 5 minutes. Start poll. There you go. Let me know who you think should be winning the tournament today. Who you'd like to see win the tournament, obviously. There's not really any should about it. Oh, there was an earlier moment where there was a knight f4 check. Sorry, UD3. I think I may have closed the game down before seeing that. Bardia, so his rating can get closer to accurate, huh? Serrana for Abdul. Sorry, I didn't put him on the list, Abdul. I had to pick 5 people, so I picked 5 people on the top 3 boards, missing 1. We'll see how it goes. I mean, Serrana is definitely, you know, he's got his chances. There's nothing drawish about his opening. In fact, I prefer black already, by the way. Maybe I should have put Serrana in the poll. I put Suleimanli because he was white, but I mean, he's not white anymore. Not anymore, you're not. How's Aragaisi doing against Bardia? Queen g6, what? Implying he wants to win this pawn? Good luck. Ghost JW has the correct selection, rooting for Sam. There we go, 1 correct answer. Good on you. Sorry, Patrick, I don't know how to run a poll on YouTube. You'll have to head over to Twitch for a second if you want to vote in our poll, and you can, you know, close it once you vote and keep watching on YouTube. Bestie, I started playing chess. Whoa. Stay out. Dog's trying to get into the kitchen. You know what that means. Technically, I started playing chess in like 19... I don't know, I started playing chess when I was about 5 years old, but I started playing in tournaments when I was 12, and that's when, you know, that's when I learned things like how to get out of Scholar's Mate and stuff like that, and stopped just making pretty pictures with my pieces. Oh, is it not possible for these guys to make it to winning the tournament? 5.5, 5.5, and Amin and Magsudlu. I think Amin and Magsudlu, they only have 6 out of 9 because they already drew their game, so they've got less chances because they can't win their games. No, I was correct with who I put there. I think I put the players who could make it. Like Aragaisi, to win the tournament, he has to win his game, right? Same with Suleimanli. He'd have to win his game here. Yeah, I mean, when I was playing, they'd started introducing time delay and increment, but it would usually be 5 seconds per move. The idea was like enough to not flag, enough time to physically play a move, but never enough time to start figuring out new moves, right? Or like calculating long variations. You could blitz without flagging, basically. So yeah. Okay, and Pomidori is saying there will not be tiebreak matches for anyone who was wondering about that. It'll be behind me again, Funky Monk, when I get home to California. Did I get to IM level more due to talent or hard work? Maybe 50-50. I think I have a pretty high level of talent, but started much later than most people who are top players. So that's one thing that set me back a little bit. And then also I didn't properly force myself to work on my weaknesses. You know, I just kept enjoying. I mostly, you know, stuck with my strengths and, you know, enjoying stuff, and I was pretty stubborn about not doing the things that might have helped my results. Okay, and Pomidori further informs us, thank you, Pomidori, for improving the broadcast, informs us that the tie breaks are, first of all, a direct encounter. If the 2 players who tie for first have played each other before and one of them won that game, that's decisive. That player wins on tiebreak. The second one is how many games you've won with black. Holy moly, Sam won like all his games with black. I think Shanklin won 3 games with black so far, so that would be a good tiebreak for him, although it's a really stupid tiebreak overall. It makes no sense, really. And then performance rating, which is one that makes sense. Yeah, wins with black is a wild tiebreak. Oh, that's an interesting choice of tiebreaks. Completely stupid. My tournament starts on Sunday. Yeah. I mean, number of blacks could be a reasonable tiebreak. Someone who had 5 blacks versus someone who had 5 whites, but number of times you happen to win with black is very random. Sorry, Magnus. Sometimes the correct answer is just the simplest. You just need to play more OTB. Also, do you do your training on a computer or on a board? You could do your training OTB, right? Like if instead of reading a chess book, you're doing a chessable course or something like that, or watching a video lesson or something like that, you could set up a board and follow through everything you're doing on your screen on your board. That would help you with OTB. But it's pretty simple and obvious how one has to do it. Yeah, Sam still gives me some tips here and there, Joe. I mean, I'm not the most serious player, right? I'm playing normally 0 to 1 tournaments a year. This year, 2 tournaments. And I only work on chess, between 1 and 3 hours a day, not 12 hours a day. So I'm not really a serious player, and therefore I don't do frequent coaching. But yeah, Sam helps me out here and there when I have a real reason to work on something or ask for a little help or get some feedback. Kostya has a steadier late bloomerier climb, and he started really young. So with Kostya, it's probably relatively a bit more hard work and a bit less talent. So maybe like 25% talent, 75% hard work, and good mentality and persistence and all that. I'm just kind of guessing. All right, crazy things happening in the Arjun game. Yeah, Stan, we should definitely have hang out. I was gonna say get dinner after the rounds, but I think the rounds are pretty late. We should get breakfast or lunch together with Maestro and anyone else from the dojo and hang out together in the mornings to keep us from preparing and stuff. Queen sack in the Arjun game? What do you mean? The queen can't get away? That seems like an intense call here. If you misclicked OTB, then you're definitely doing a lot of online. Because misclick is not an OTB thing. Oh, you're saying it could be insane if Bardia takes on C3. That move, knight h4 on its own, is pretty odd. Let's see, what did... He played here, here, here. Queen g6 attacking the pawn. I thought he would play knight d2 defending the pawn, right? I'm just so dumb. Instead, he played bishop g3, takes, knight h4. The idea being to kick the queen off of defending the pawn. Then play cd4 and knight c3. If it works out, great. So this is the exciting question, folks. Let's follow it. It's unlikely they'll play something that's exciting, but we can imagine it until they play something that's not this. Takes. Okay, I think if we save the knight, pawn takes, rook equals queen is going to be too much, right? But let me just check. Is there anything forceful or violent this knight can do? No. So it would have to be here. Queens. Here. Takes. And then we just need to evaluate it. Black has 2 pawns, rook, and light squared bishop against queen. Yeah, it should be playable for black. This should be playable. I wouldn't call it a sack. It's a trade, right? This would not be sacrificing your queen. For anyone who's new to the game and doesn't understand the word sacrifice very well, in a sacrifice, you have to trade something that's generally worth more material for something that's generally worth less material. In this case, black has made an approximately equal material trade, right? Black has gotten, you know, by the point system, 10 points of material for 9 points, right? So from the old point system, black's even 1 material, but I would say in my own experience, rook, bishop, and pawn is usually a little bit worse than a queen, and rook, bishop, and 2 pawns is usually about right. So I would call it just a trade, okay? I would use the term trade when pieces are getting captured on both sides and they're roughly equal, and I would call it a sacrifice when they're dramatically unequal. And honestly, when somebody sacks in exchange for 2 pawns, that's something we should not call a sacrifice either, right? Like you get a minor piece and 2 pawns for a rook and you call it a sacrifice? Ridiculous. If you get a minor piece and 1 pawn for a rook, at best it's like a half a pawn gambit or something, you know, or a half gambit, something of that sort. It's not a dramatic sacrifice either. I can play the Caro-Kann in Vienna, yeah. I'm not very experienced in the Vienna, but I've got a lot of experience with the Caro. And I think I know enough about the Vienna that I could play it. Oh yeah, if it's white's move in this position, they can grab this pawn and black's dark squares are a little bit weak, and then it's a small plus for white. Very small. I am far too experienced with the King's Gambit. Another option for white here would be to play knight takes c3. The queen still has to find somewhere to go, and then you grab here. And here you just keep a tiny plus for white as well. Yeah. Much simpler. The only opening that matters. If it were the only opening that matters, I think I would have made GM. If everyone had to play the King's Gambit with white and black every game, I would have probably made GM long, long ago. Okay. So that's the position. Knight h4 played. I mean, a more normal move for black would be something like, you know, queen e6, but then after pawn takes, black's just significantly worse. Significantly. Like, I don't even know what advice to give them next. I guess they have to try bishop d6. And then I changed my mind. That's okay. That's more or less okay for black. Good move. Good move. Okay, so something like that. So white might have a tiny edge, but nothing dramatic. We're going to leave it as white's better on that board, but it's very small. How's my screen capture for today, my non-professional thing? Do I have any glaring errors? Live position main game. That seems to exist. Games are all from round 9. Yeah, status reasonable. Okay, yeah. No, it's 2 different kinds of talent, you. I feel like tactically talented and positionally talented players could have, in theory, equal amounts of talent. Just different kinds. Okay, let's click to some other boards. Since this is truly not like a queen sack, it's just a tough decision for Bardia right here for him to reflect on a little bit. For me, perhaps the absolutely #1 weakest part of my entire game is decision making between multiple options of being worse. So I've got 3 or 4 options. Each of them is somewhere between slightly worse and clearly worse. There's none that's really close to equal. There's none that's completely lost. Making those decisions is probably where I, most consistently drop the evaluation of my position, burn up time, wear out my brain, etc. I think that's like my biggest weakness of all. So I can feel Bardia's pain a little bit right here. The good thing is he only has like 2 choices, not 3 or 4. So he can't burn up as much mind and effort on those choices. And also there's a transposition possibility. Like if he goes queen e6, one option for white is takes, which transposes to the d takes c3 position, as you saw, right? Like the d takes c3 position could also go this way. So he only has 2 to 3 positions he needs to consider. It's not overwhelming unless there's other variations available to him that I just didn't even see, right? So Patrick, you think like the newer neural nets in terms of percent chance of winning? That's, yeah, fair enough. All right, we'll answer Yu's question by turning to Shanklin's position and seeing the moves that led to it. Shanklin played a King's Indian attack. You know why? Because he won 2 games with the King's Indian defense this tournament. He was just pumped on it. He's like, yeah, let's take the kid back to that shed. But look at what the kid did. The kid played the exchange variation against the King's Indian. So we can see that Merjan had very minimal ambitions here. He's satisfied with what he's done in the first 8 rounds of the tournament. And like Bardia, he's showing some fear of Sam and just wants to hold. I wonder why black didn't have time to play b5 before white got to c4. And now what does Sam have in mind in case of b5? Where was he headed? Worse in the live position, go back. This is the live position. Oh, you think black is just worse here. So if he goes b5, you think that Sam would have just come here and laughed at the pawn on b5. You think that pawn is so bad as all that you can just laugh at it? This knight's not very good at the moment, nor this bishop. Black has some work to do. Black definitely has some work to do. I think we're going to leave this as being better for white for the moment. It's subtle enough. Oh, look, Sam got a clock for board 1. This is his first time all tournament where he's got a clock, folks. Oh, I prefer Bartel's suggestion, by the way. No offense to anybody else, but after this, he says knight here to here. And that's a juicy square. So I'm not an expert on these positions, folks, but I do believe that white's position is preferable at this point here. Very interesting and aggressive to see Sam giving up the file. To me, normally when you want to play on, you trade 1 rook and you don't oppose the second one. And you keep 1 rook on the board. I have very, very rarely seen white, or seen anybody, just avoid all the rook trades like this. So I'll get to that in a second, you. Don't worry, I don't forget the questions. You don't have to ask them like 3 or 4 times. It may be a strength or a weakness of my broadcasting, but I read the chat very closely. Giving up file is crazy, doesn't matter what time format, says Zane. Very often, Zane, I've seen people trade one rook and keep one rook on the board, so the game will be more complicated when they manage to open a file on the side. Yeah. I've seen that many times. Trade one rook and give up the file so as not to trade too much off and make the game more equal. But this keeping both rooks is newish, new concept to me. There's a lack of infiltration points, but when they can get doubled rooks, that really somehow it often overpowers things. And you have to be very careful which miners you trade, and sometimes there's exchange sacks. So why he trapped his A1 rook is because he's planning to expand the full queenside here. B4 and then A4, I think, Abdul. Or maybe B4 and then maneuver this knight. So it keeps the B3 square and bring it all the way towards C5. Maybe. Okay. So yeah, we're going to leave the evaluation here as better for white, though I'm not convinced. That's my guess for the moment. And we have the question, what is Sam's greatest weakness? And I think that Sam's greatest weakness is getting frustrated. And I think that he spent like the last 5 years getting frustrated, struggling unsuccessfully with that frustration, and then, you know, struggling with it some more. So that's the answer. He sometimes, you know, tells himself narratives about how things weren't fair. I mean, you've all spent time with chess players, so you know that to some extent all chess players do this, almost all, right? If somebody doesn't, it really stands out. But when they have a result that's not what they want, they say, "Oh my gosh, how could it be that, you know, this guy that I happened to play this opening that somebody had prepared for yesterday against somebody else? That was the worst luck ever, right?" Or, you know, there was no way to guess. He played this line he's never played before. Blah. You know, there's always these kinds of like stories, and I think when Sam gets frustrated, he does that, like most people do. But his frustration can be too much for him. It can hurt him a bit. Frustration with people trying to draw games against him instead of trying to win. You know, frustration with changes in opening theory and this and that. I think one of my the two areas I referred to earlier about how I didn't work on what I needed to become like a GM. One of the two things, or to, you know, whatever that held me back at some point, I think one was just like a full refusal to study openings, basically, because I thought it's so dumb to sit there memorizing moves. And for most people, it is dumb to memorize moves. But if you're trying to, you know, make IM, GM, Super GM, stuff like that, and you're playing against other people who are doing that and you don't do it at all, it's going to be a handicap. I still believe that, you know, if you're 1600, it's not the best use of your time yet. And for me, I knew that it would help my results, and I thought it's still just such a stupid thing to spend one's time doing that I refused to do it. You know, like I'd rather be 50 points lower rated and not have spent my time doing rote memorization. And it was a conscious choice that I made. Okay, and our fourth board, Mendonca and Ivan. So after h4, looking for h5, a pawn sack to open up the h file on the king, black played h5. Now if you want to open up the king side, you have to go g4. It's going to cost you one pawn as well, but maybe the center will fall apart, you know, from the side, incidentally or ancillarily, right, connected to all that. Yeah, Bardia Daneshvar played great all tournament until he was in first place, right, Abdul? And then once he was in first place, he became a scared little wimpy man, right? Before that, he was a beastly teenager with no cares in the world, just going after the higher rated players, pressing, playing his heart out. Then he gets to shared first place by surprise when Cheetah blunders, and he becomes a wimpy scared guy. And that's That's just one result, one tournament standing, one day, you know? And so compare that to our recent discussion about world champions, and once you're the champion of everything, how that weighs on you to keep your position, how you spend so much time fearing about losing your position instead of trying to gain a position or win some kind of thing or achieve something, right? You can see how much Dineshvar changed in one day, right? And now imagine the world champions. Oh yeah, if he played queen g5, that does not look like the right move to me. Okay, so h5 to stop the advance. Mendonca could insist and try to just explode everything, and at some point, you know, that's one of the main things you can do after h4, h5. But he decides first to weaken the dark squares around black's king, and then with the bishop here, g4 becomes stronger. I'll just show you one example of what g4 could look like. This is not the move that Zemlyansky played, but just to illustrate the idea, you go g4, pawn takes, h5. And now after knight h5, rook takes, pawn takes, queen g5, you win the game. So that's how bishop h6 makes these sacks stronger. You have an immediate kill ready once you go for it. That makes sense? So this move here, it may look like, oh, he's switching to some kind of positional gear. And to some extent, maybe, you know, he's trying to trade off a good piece and weaken the dark squares around the king. But it could also be the prelude if you played a totally normal move, rook c8, to extreme violence, right? Just one moment later. So bishop h6, e5, retreats the knight. That's the live position we've got there. Leon-Luc Mendonca here, who's playing white. I guess we haven't yet introduced him this tournament, but I think he's half a point off the lead as well by now. Oh no, he's at 5 out of 8, so he was like a full point behind the lead. Okay, well, he lost in the first round. That's why we didn't see much of him early on, to a 2,500 rated player that's lower than him. Drew another 2,500 rated player, beat a 2,400, beat a 2,500, drew Theodoro, drew Marc-Andrea Moritzi, the junior champion, then beat Timur Quibokarov. So he gradually crawled his way up, little by little, persistent. He's making, you know, an acceptable result for his rating. He's obviously able to play e4 and d4, kind of a universal opening repertoire and to some extent style. He's another Indian teenager, you know. So yeah, probably like, no, 18 maybe. I'm looking it up. Yeah, he's 18 now. So yeah, strong and talented player. He managed to grind down Kostya in a King's Indian defense at a tournament that we all played in December. And in terms of Bardia's style, UD3, Bardia is a positional player on the side of like a technical player, right? And technical chess versus positional chess, it's I don't know if I've ever had to explain it before or heard anyone else explain it, but it's like even simpler, clearer positions, you know? It's not huge strategic conceptions, It's not, opposite side castling. It's not even a plan like b4, c4, c5, gaining space as white in the King's Indian. That's not technical, right? That's strategy. Technical is, symmetrical positions, fighting over like the placement of the one knight that you have in the game versus your opponent's one knight, or executing a bishop pair versus bishop and knight with 3 pawns each on the king side and 1 pawn each on the queen side. Playing a position where you've got a passed d pawn and your opponent's got a queenside majority. Very, very clear, simple positions, and just fighting over very minor improvements of those positions. So that's Bardia's predominant style. Obviously, he's at a phase now where he's being forced to diversify a bit as he transitions from 2500 to 2700 level in this past year. But a year ago, that's where he was. And, Englishes, Catalans, those kind of openings that are suited to that style. And that makes him also a very good positional defender. Very, 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 very tough for a kid and very patient for a kid, extremely patient for a kid. Or a young man or whatever, 17, borderline. When I was 17, I thought I was a man, of course. Now I find myself calling 20-year-olds kids sometimes. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a moment about this e5 choice from Ivan. It kills this bishop and weakens the d file, right? But he sees that it's a situation where his dark squared bishop is likely getting traded, so it's okay to put pawns on dark squares if he's not going to have that bishop. He sees it's a situation where already it's hard for white to gain control over d5. He's already got knight and bishop covering the square and a b pawn that's ready to go to b4 and cut off that control of d5 for white. So this square's not a concern for an outpost at the moment, and d6, white could only pressure if they find time and another square for this bishop on d3. So given all the constellations in the position, it's very, very reasonable to play e5 here. And then quickly rook c8, getting to the open file for maximum counterplay and pressure against white makes perfect sense. Could this be a position where you go knight c5, pawn takes c5, and c4 at some point? Possibly. For knight c5, dc5 to be bad, it's usually because the opponent can jump into d5, which is not the case here. So it's conceivable he could switch to knight c5 here, and I think it'd be very reasonable for Mendonca to back off of this bishop trade now. I would not go through with the bishop trade. I would come back to g5 or e3. Probably g5 to have some influence over the fight over d5. I think that's a good square to be on. Abdul says g4 time to attack. It's true that g4 might win the game, so he should calculate that too. Before just playing a, oh, what do these moves imply positionally, and just backing off with bishop g5. You should definitely check if g4 wins. But if you'll notice, compared to the variation I gave last time, this sack here doesn't work anymore because of this. The e5 move introduced the queen as a ancillary diagonal defender of the king side. So g4 may or may not kill black here. It may or may not even work, right? So it's a controversial option. He'll definitely probably calculate it briefly. If you go for bishop g7, then also you're definitely going to have to play g4. But now it's like even worse because the black rook comes to h8 quickly. So I expect he'll drop back bishop g5, but there might be something good with g4 that I don't see. If you want, I can check it briefly. Here, here, here. If the pawn takes, there's queen g5, only one defense to the mate, queen h5. And I would assume that black is dead here, just dead in the water. It's just getting killed. White's only down one pawn at the moment. This pawn's hanging, which would make it no pawns. There's mate on h8 threatened via the trade. This rook can come here. That has to be dead. So it would have to be knight takes h5. Now, instead of sacking the rook, we could just take like this. Knight will have to come here to stop the queen from going to h6. Now, if we trade and go queen h2, you'll see how much time matters, right? Oops. That didn't work out, right? We could go queen h2, probably the most promising move here. Let me just show you one other thing. We could regain our pawn and say, haha, we were kidding about sacking. Now material's equal. But now your opponent's pieces are amazing. So it's not my instinct to play that way. I don't like the feel or look of that option, okay? So I think you'd most likely move would be queen h2, waiting to trade till you're ready to come in. That said, if you trade and come in, I feel like black can even just escape through f6 for the moment. So you might have to go g5, then trade, then checkmate. So this would be like a likely continuation if we wanted to examine white's mating potential. Let's look for counters for black in this position to defend the king. I guess this is one obvious one, trying to put the queen here. But g5 was on the radar for white anyway, right? And then black is dead. In fact, g5 doesn't work otherwise. Oh, nice move, Ally. This move here as well, yeah. And then mate. Funnily enough, we're not really threatening g5 yet otherwise. If I go, let's say, b4, knight e2, knight takes, bishop takes, bishop e4. You see we're not having time for g5. Man, I'm not even giving white time to do it to show you that it doesn't work. Okay, I'm going to play, I don't know, rook e8 or something. g5, knight h5 blocks the file. So it's very tough to make this, to make any threat even for white here. Honestly, tough. And then if you look at what was happening when I played b4, you see that black was starting to do stuff, right? So now if you go g5 here, at least there's no knight to h5. Okay, so we're making a threat at least. At least. That's good. No, a threat is really good. Hey, I stumbled on something here completely by accident. But now we've got a real threat because we traded that knight. And yes, this rook's hanging and c2, d1 is hanging, but like it's not clear how this helps black if they get mated, right? So I think with these things both attacked, black should look at f6 and f5 here to try and avoid the sort of getting checkmated aspect of things. But, I mean, even this, you're still mated. Ay, ay, ay. What are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do for black here? It feels like I busted myself. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, no time to take on e4. I'm kind of regretting b4 now. Oh, that's true, Merles. Okay, that's a better move for black. Rook takes c2. Yes, yes, yes. If bishop takes bishop, again, we've got rook check. That's clear enough. I thought the king would just move over, but now maybe sack here, right? Hitting the queen. Queen takes. We regain our material. Now the queen's off h2 for a moment. We take, and the queen can't get in front of the rook and pawn properly. Pawn takes, you just hide your king away. Hey, you gotta hide your king away. And on rook takes, I mean, things are just arranged in the wrong order now, right? Queen here, but it's not gonna, there's no checkmate coming. Yeah, there's just nothing coming. This doesn't look okay. White's down 4 connected past pawns, and black can do any number of things. You know, here maybe, check here. Or queen here, and then queen g7 covering the checkmates, and just, you've got 4 pawns. Rook takes t2. That was great, Merles. Yeah, that was great. That kills white. Oh, yeah. All right. Now, Abdul told us if white doesn't go for g4, white's just going to be worse in this game. And that's controversial. I think if white plays bishop g5, it should just be a game. I'm going to say equal. That's also just a guess, by the way, folks. I have no particular bead on what's going on here or insight. Let's see how tight this game is going. Rook c1, knight to g8. Yeah, that knight was definitely bad. And the bishop. So he's going to play bishop h6. Sam doesn't stop it. He plays it. Sam doesn't stop. And that's the live position. And Sam's still a bit ahead on the clock. Volodar Murzin is a slow player. He's always... Every game I've seen of him at this tournament, he's been low on time. So, I mean, this was like a very nice maneuver he's just done. I think he's improved his position a lot. But Sam's trying to say he's still worse, even after offloading this bishop, which he should do. This is just me doing a variation if you want to see the real positions below. Now the idea of maybe bishop c4 to get this square for the knight. This piece needs to be repositioned as well to do this at some point. Or black could try for counterplay, but that's insane here. Yeah, it's so insane it's even losing. You know, check, here, take it, here, check. If the king backs up, you lose this pawn. If the king comes this way, and you grab this pawn for free. So f5's losing for now. That means no counterplay. This knight's still not good. We offloaded one bad piece. Yeah, I understand that Sam allowed that. Black's offloaded one bad piece, and their position is still worse, right? So, yeah. So, you know, maybe you come back. Time to make a concession, right? This is just an example of what white's play could look like. Because I know for most of us, we look at a position like this, it feels like nothing's going on, right? Like, they're maneuvering around, what's at stake, you know, what's the big deal? So I'm just trying to give myself and you a flavor of what it could look like. Let me play not f5. Right, and you see white gets in. And black can go for counterplay now with the rook, but black's knights are worse placed than white's, so likely black's not going to get fully to equality out of this. Although, I mean, who knows? Defend each other. Save this guy. Take here. Knight b6, rook e7 wins. Yeah, white stays better, right? White stays better. The black knights are somehow still fairly poor. So, just a little feel for it. a5. Whoa, dramatic action from Murzin here. And what's his plan against b5 from Shanky? Maybe Sam should trade on h6 now, just to keep his knight in position to threaten a5 and not head back with the knight. Maybe he should just go b5 straight off the bat here. He's going to bring the knight back here and around here, huh? Okay, it makes sense. And it locks things up so that Sam can't attack as much. Okay, okay. I understand. Understand. All right, I think it might be time for our first little stream break. So I'm going to give you guys Aragaisi on one board, Sam on the other board. What happened here? Queen g5 takes. Here, take it, come forward. Yeah, Queen g5 does not look good. This looks a little bit unpleasant to try and hold some dark squares for black here with this bishop in here. So yeah, we're going to take a little break. Should I leave the position running or not? I'm not sure. All right, so we're gonna be back in about 15 minutes. Back at 5 past. All right, see you all soon. What's up, what's up, what's up? No moves? Oh no, he played d5. It just didn't register. One move. I was pretty quick then. Only one move played in all that time, huh? Hey Iris, welcome to the show. This is the final round of the Sharjah Masters. If Dineshvar could beat Arjun here with black, he would win the tournament. He would win the tournament. Conversely, if Arjun beats Dineshvar with white, he's got a chance of catching up with Mersin and Shanky, the leaders. Has Sam done something about a5? Yeah, oh yeah. He went, boom, boom, making some weaknesses. Okay, for both sides, might I mention, you know, some weaknesses for both sides. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, well, but when this knight comes out, there would be knight d6 check and maybe knight takes b7. So black's got to be careful about how to come out here. What if Sam traded on h6 and played rook d1, trying to force through knight d6? I guess he'd have to trade on c4 to keep the white knight out. That's probably what he would have to do. Sam, 14 minutes ahead. He must have been thinking a while on this current move here. Is that right, folks, for those of you who've been watching? No, it's fine, you. I wanted to get back to your questions, so. I'm sorry I didn't get to it yesterday, but you see how many come in. Part of me wants to just play like an exchange sack, you know? The rooks are not being that important so far in the game, but these pieces aren't all following through. Yeah, I think Sam's probably been thinking a while on this move, right? It's Sam's move, so black can't go bishop e3. I'm thinking that here Sam might want to go takes, here, and here. But I think if black trades off here, that might be fine for black. That's what I'm thinking, right? Because how good is the bishop in this closed position compared to a knight? It's not really, right? It's not really good. This looks acceptable. Although, oh, we can try and take the file while the pieces are blocked up. Probably no knight d7 because of bishop e6. So king here. No, wait! I've got a slicker move, guys. Oh, look at that move! Look at that move! That would be the move of the tournament. It's a hell of a drug. See, if the knight tries to come out, you've still got rook d1. And if the king comes up, you get bishop c8. Rook a6, we've got options. Rook b1 maybe. And black's kind of frozen. But actually knight a6 and coming here might diffuse the whole thing. The rook covers bishop c8 and we're not really doing much. Bishop c8, rook a6. I have rook b1, Abdul, and I win a pawn for white. Now we would need this knight to get into the game, but we're just getting kicked back in disarray. That doesn't do anything. Ay, 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 ay. Okay, so this is a live position, c6, and he's a thinking. He's a thinking. What's he gonna do? Am I insane to want to go bishop c5 and give that exchange? Tell me, am I crazy? Am I only dreaming? Or is this is an actual exchange sack because I didn't take any pawns. Or is this exchange an eternal sack? Maybe black just does this and then doesn't care what I'm doing. Chess is a hard game. Also, you could probably take and do this. You could probably do it. But look, check, move, munch, here. Oh no, rook b8. Hang on. Rook b8. Let's remain honest. Are you honest, my lord? Yeah, that's killing. Okay, I give up. That was not an eternal anything, that bishop c5, just a blunder. So I don't see a path forward for Sam. I don't know what he had in mind when he shoved here and made all the weaknesses. But that pawn is looking risky. Shoot. Maybe rook here. The rook's got to take, I think. We could get into details, but it's my first thought. The rook's got to take. Then here. Check. It's a lot of work for not a good position. It's just nothing. It's just nothing. And Sam's clock ticking down is telling us that. It's telling us there's no follow-up. I put equal, but I mean, he could even be worse with that b6 pawn. Yeah, rook d1 right now. I agree, Merles. That move makes sense. But after takes, what do you want to do? Take with your rook instead of my weird thing? Then black has to do this. 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 I don't know that it's bad. I would rather trade Patrick than just sit with my rook on b1 all game, for sure. The problem is that a4 is hanging. So like when I calculate this line, for example, Patrick, here, 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 I'm not convinced that my active rook is any good here. You know? Don't love it. Don't love it. Lines are a little bit long, folks. So apologies to anyone lost a little bit in the length of those lines. But basically, the issue is black's going to trade off this piece and then go after this pawn with the knight. And this bishop can always trade off this knight that's defending it. So we're trying to figure out, you know, what does white do in the meantime with these pieces to justify the weakness on b6. Judging from how long Sam is thinking, it could be that black is better. It could just be that it's that long think where you accept equality, right? After playing for the advantage the whole game. Yeah, how bad was my bishop h6 line? I don't think there shouldn't be any scenario where white's like terribly worse. So we had here, here, rook here, here. What? That hung a rook. That couldn't be right. Let's revise that variation. And now it's knight d7 or trade. Let's go with trade. Check. King here. Black's highly comfortable, right? Highly. Ay, ay, ay. I would say black's a little bit better here. The bishop's just not as good as a knight at the moment. Yeah, rook dc1 was something special, but I think his current position is not. So I'd like to say go Sam. I mean, it's hard to win a game at this level with absolutely no advantage, no nothing, fairly equal endgame, Mersion. I don't think Sam has anything here with which to outplay Mersion. Yeah, white b6 pawn is tough. Tough to hold on to. Okay, let's check on the other boards. d5. Arjun just develops the knight. Wow. Just straight up whatever. And leaves Dinesh Bar thinking. Huh. I thought the point was going to be like knight d6 hitting the rook and then e5, right? You asking me, Pao Bao? You're asking about me, how I can go down a line and then remember the position that it was coming from? To me, all those lines we're looking at are connected. Like I could go for a 2-hour run, come back and set, well, I can't run for 2 hours anymore. I could go do something else for 2 hours, come back and set up the position again because I've thought about it enough that I know where all the pieces are in relation to each other. Yeah. Well, on this move, knight here, how would the knight be trapped? Rook somewhere e5, right? And the knight's protected by the pawn structure. This looked like a normal approach for white to me. Maybe this f6 move is a concern, or maybe he thinks the move he played is even better, right? We could try this. This is the kind of move that could potentially be a concern. Knight takes e5. Yeah, knight takes e5 is no good, right? White takes back, and then by the time you take on e5, there's always knight c8, and white's up a piece. Right? So let's go like this. The rook could be on e6 or on e7. We don't yet know which one is better. Looks like they just had a move, which was knight f6. Okay, get to that in a second. Okay, I think this would be interesting, this line here. Queen d2, hitting the queen to try and boost our development real quick, right? And now if black tries to win this pawn, there's two branches. One we go like f4. And then knight g6. Well, we could keep this line going. Takes here. Okay. And black holds it and keeps the extra pawn. Okay, so it doesn't quite work, huh? Oh, that would be a great line, yeah. Symphonic Knight. Alles klar, Herr Dinesh war. Maybe that's coming. Maybe that song is coming. Okay, so for the moment, f6 looks like a bit of a problem, potentially, and maybe explaining the move knight c3 from Arjun. If takes his knight would have been hanging. So I think he would have had to, you know, plunge in like this, and then like this, and then like this, and here, and it's hard to say. It's hochkompliziert, you know. I don't know what would come of this possibility. Very messy. But Dineshvar chose knight f6, so that releases all his pieces. And Arjun needs a pretty good answer now, because against knight d6, he could conceivably have in mind bishop h3, right? So I don't even know if he can play knight d6 anymore. He can certainly consider it, and it might work. It might work. We don't know. He could maybe start with h4 here, poke the queen, but it's not positionally desirable to do that. Definitely no pawn takes pawn. And e5 looks like it loses a pawn as well, right? To simple takes, and then either bishop h3 or queen f6. So he doesn't have 10 million options. Knight g3 is an option to just say, okay, I've got nothing. Let's just keep it closer to equal. Knight g3 is an option to keep it closer to equal. h4 is a bizarre option to keep the game going. And knight d6 is a very, very risky one. Maybe let's look at knight d6 first and just see if it doesn't work, right? Let's look deeper into this. So the move here would be like queen f3. Now this is hanging and this is hanging, so I think it would be here. Queen g3. Rook e6. Or knight h5 first. Knight h5 first. Because on rook e6, f3, you know, might lose for black. So let's throw in knight h5, poking the bear. She goes here. The game goes on. The game goes on. It's probably close to equal, weirdly. Rook e6, f3, rook takes d6. Maybe this move. e5. Knight h5, queen g4. Oh, rook g6. I hadn't seen that earlier. In that case, we got to do like e5, knight here, queen here. And black's up a pawn. There's like a smidge of compensation for white, but not even half of the pawn. Less than half of the pawn of compensation. Feels like he cannot go knight d6 here to me. So we might be looking at knight g3 and the game losing its appeal for white, just at the same point in time where Sam's game lost its appeal for him. He did trade on h6 and then played this knight here. So if there's a trade here, he recaptures, defending this and going after these squares. And he still keeps all the rooks on the board. Yeah, it makes sense, but Sam spent 25 minutes on this decision. Bishop takes h6. So, and then coming for this. So we can see that he's not pumped about what he's got here, but he is probably still, you know, holding equality with this. I guess king e7 to help control this square, bring the knight back to f7, and it should be equal, you know, like he's probably not blowing it, which is important. You know, you can't always win, but there's no reason to just be so upset that you lose every time a good position turns equal, which tends to happen quite often. Knight g3 from Arjun. We're all super grandmasters today. He retreats the knight and things are equal. Let's check in on Sharjah and Suleimanli. Draw agreed. Oh, they didn't get really any further than the position we'd seen before. Knight b3, knight d4. Nothing. A real nothing burger of a game. So that one ends 1/2, 1/2. It's like nobody really has that burning desire or confidence to win the tournament at this point. There's only so much banning of draws you can do. I mean, if people move back and forth, you know, if there's opening theory that says this is what you have to do, then, you know, they have to do it. By the way, this game here, these players are not playing for first place, but they're youngsters and they're jousting. And g4 was played. b4, knight e2, h takes g4. So this game is in battle mode. Leon Luke plays g4 as advocated by Abdul and Patrick. Didn't play my lame bishop g5 move. I didn't think it was lame, but we're going to call me lame anyway, you know. That's how it goes. And what's the follow-up? Inquiring minds would like to know, what is your follow-up? Chat claiming that h5 is sweet for some reason. Okay. I could take your word for it, but I'll just say I disagree. It's just a move. I think black's going to be fine here. Sorry for the eval bar showing equal, equal, equal here right now. Yeah, I think knight g3, g takes f3, h5 looks like a reasonable continuation. Sure, we'll just put that on the board as a suggestion. Maybe knight here defending this pawn and controlling this square. Takes, and here. Oh yeah, I'm sure the players are tired, but then, you know, you have to remember your opponent's tired too, right? So you go for the kill. Go for the kill. This looks playable. I mean, I don't necessarily think anything's wrong with black's position either, but it looks playable. Maybe bring this knight to cover some squares. basically the same thing can be achieved by trading, I think. Takes, knight here. Queen doesn't have any squares other than way back here. And now, maybe even just this move. If I'm white, I'd trade once and maybe go grab this pawn just to mix things up a bit. But you can see this pawn is, it's not easy to collect it. It's going to be a factor. Warlockinator, that is generally not going to be very good. Let me show you. It's important. Why? After this, because you've traded before you played h5, black always has this resource of rook h8. And they just look to counter the file and not allow any threats to their king. You know? So that's why you have to be very careful about when you trade on g7 or g6. Every trade you make gives the opponent a new square for the remaining pieces to move through. If black still had a pawn on h7, there would be an idea of like h6, king here, and the rook is trapped, and you play over here on the queen side, and they don't have their rook. But here, the rook would still be able to take the pawn potentially, and they can just block the pawn with the king, and their rook is still connected to the game, so it's just not going to be good for white, exactly as Patrick said. Okay, bishop g7, hg7, fg. And against rook h8, you have g5. Yes, but black's going to take the pawn, right? One of these pawns. Maybe your center pawn, maybe your g pawn. The counter to h5 right away is knight takes h5. And we had this position at some point. Takes like this, right? The move is a little different because b4 has been played earlier. So now against knight f4, white could take it with the knight. And if the knight has to go back this way, there would now be this. It's not exactly an extra tempo, it's that there is no longer knight f4 like we played for black previously, because the moves have been played in a different order. So now, yeah, there's some different problems for black here. I mean, I'm tempted to go rook takes and g6, the classic Fischer approach. But I'm also thinking knight g3 might do the trick really simply. Wait, did I miss checkmate in 1? No need to play g5. Hi, Drago. Welcome to the show. So this completely wins with the knight on e2. It just immediately wins. Nobody's playing me right now, Drago. This is commentary on a chess tournament in progress. So what we're doing is we're watching games played by some of the best players in the world, and we're talking about them while they play. I don't know if you've ever seen sports on TV or something like that, but it would be like that, you know, like watching the French Open or the NBA playoffs or something of that sort. I hardly know what those things are, so I don't assume that other people do, but Drago, yeah? Okay. I suspected that even as I said it wrong. Sorry, but thank you. Welcome, Drago, to live coverage of a top-level chess tournament. Brutal. Brutal. It's just like a kill. Okay, hang on. So h5, what does black do? You can grab here. Taking gives the king a flight square. Maybe this. But here I'd had defensive ideas for black. This transposes to some ideas I had. Okay, so let's say we play h5 and black just takes. What's next? For a second, I thought bishop takes, king takes, queen h6 could potentially work. See how this has that checkmatey kind of taste to it. But first of all, there's knight g4, king f6 to e7. It doesn't work. And second of all, useful to know that a much simpler defense in general is not to open the file your opponent wants open. King g7, refuging, and white doesn't even have, the whisper of a threat. Okay, so g takes f3. Merle suggests trading on g6. Curious what's next. Maybe rook g1 like this. Okay, I guess one move correctly. So the idea is on king f7, we can now trade, check on h6, take on g6, etc. Yeah, this is at least a little bit threatening. So far, white hasn't sacked a piece. Not till black has the time to actually capture that knight. If king f7, Patrick says you could probably just take on g6 with the rook. Wow. Maybe. Maybe. Oh, I like Mr. Pujols' suggestion. Knight takes e4. Yeah. I like me some counter threats. That's a nice move. You take on g6 or g7. Black's going to take the queen with check, right? And if you trade off that knight, then the bishop starts to hold the g file, or at least it tries to, right? The game's still interesting. But white's got the knight in c2 hanging, queen d6, probably rook f6 is tough enough. Exactly, Symphonic Knight. Yes, even that queen sack line, knight g4, rook g4, king f6 to e7 was winning for black. But I was just saying a better thing to know in terms of self-preservation is to not open the file for your opponent that they want to open and play king g7. Goose Fighter, personally, I never learned the names of the squares on the board. I never did any memorizing or learning of them. All I did was play a bunch of chess games until I knew stories about every square. And I knew every square in relation to, what tended to happen on that square. For a lot of people, the first square you'll learn will be either e4 or d4. Those are the center squares where you can put either your king pawn or your queen pawn on the first move. So a lot of times the first squares people will learn are either e4 or d4, and then the rest of the center, right? e4, e5, or d4, d5. Queen pawn opening, king pawn opening. Once you've learned those squares, then you start learning some other typical squares, like my knight usually comes out on f3, or what are the three squares that my knight can come out on? E2, f3, or h3 are kind of the three choices for a knight every game. What square do you give scholars checkmate on? Right? What's the weakest square on the board that's only defended by the black king? What's the final move of scholars mate? It's queen takes f7, checkmate. So to me, I never had to learn the squares. I just learned chess, and at some point I knew enough stories about all the squares that I knew where the squares were. And that worked for me. The link that Warlockinator is giving you is also something that you could try. Some people have enjoyed or found it useful. I grew up with mostly algebraic notation, Elise, but because a lot of my early chess books were secondhand books from the used bookstore, and I just took whatever they had / whatever was cheapest and they had. I read a lot of books that were in descriptive notation as well. Like of the early books I read, you know, maybe 30 to 40% were in descriptive notation. So I certainly know descriptive notation as well. But I don't think in terms of it. It's unwieldy and stupid, right? So who would? Yeah, I think it's not quite here. I think Mr. Pujol has ruined this line for us with knight e4, right? Oh, our other game has ended in a draw. So we're going to be seeing a massive tie for first place here today, folks. The tournament will not be decided by blood. The game went knight d2, king e7, knight b3, takes, knight d7, rook b1, knight b6, knight a5, yep, rook a5, rook b6, draw agreed. Looks pretty balanced, right? Looks pretty balanced how they played it. So the long think that Sam had, folks, was not, as one or two people guessed, because he was suddenly worse. It was probably the thing that I guessed that it was, which is the moment where you realize and accept that you have no way forward, no way to keep the tension, no way to keep the pressure on, and you have to accept that it's kind of simplifying out into equality. So that game ends in a draw, which gives some hope to the people who started the round on 5.5, but none of them really seem to be winning their games today, right? Many of them didn't even try. So that could be said of Maksudlu, Tabatabai, Sarana, and Aiden Suleimanli. I'm confused. Really, I don't understand the calculus behind not even trying to win the tournament. As I understand it, if they won the game, they would get several $1,000s, and if they drew the game, they'd probably get a couple $100. So, or maybe 1,000 versus 4,000. I'm very confused that these players had no apparent interest in winning the tournament. I mean, and you could say that these players at least, like, you know, they checked the opponent, they played out the opening, they saw if they got an advantage or not. But over here on this board, I mean, obviously anybody playing this line was not trying to win, right? Not even trying. They were just, for all I know, they agreed to the draw before the round started, right? So very strange to see people in that situation not even trying to win. I'm not sure I can understand I don't know what the calculation is on why it's not even worth playing the game. Amin and Parham are friends. Sure, but they get relatively nothing. Swap for Prez, do you think black could take over? Nah, it's just equal. I mean, in this game here, how's the knight going to establish itself on d6? It would have to go through f7 where Sam can take it, right? And more importantly, these pawns are probably about to get traded, right? Like if you go rook d7 and Sam... I guess not this because of this, huh? I guess Sam would just bring his king towards the middle of the board and trade the knight when it tries to get to d6. I don't see anything for anyone to do. All right, let's see another game. Arjun and Bardia, knight g3 is going to take here. It's the only move to defend the rook against knight f6 check. I saw this position in advance when I considered knight g3 for him, and I looked at the moves d5 and knight c5 here. This is reminiscent of a position I had at my last tournament with a similar theme, the isolated pawn, the c5 outpost for the knight. But queen h5 to keep this bishop from coming to too good a square. And if bishop e6, he has knight g5, h6, doubling rooks. He's going to come here, maybe make some threats. The pawn's not hanging because there's always knight f6 check. But once this bishop's off the back rank, maybe black will threaten this. Oh, but white's going to double, yeah. Interesting. Okay, so the idea could be rook g3, threatening queen h6 at some point. Could be some kind of a threat could come up here. These players can't win the tournament right here. They're both on 5 out of 8, but Salem Saleh over here, he's got 5.5, and Shamsidin Volkanov has 5.5. So these players, if something happens here, they could win the tournament. Looks like Salem has sacked an exchange, truly sacked it. Just knight versus rook, no extra pawns. The knight's on a good dark square, but black must be better. Black must be better. We're going to switch this game here out for Salem Volkanov. And guess. We'll start from the point of view that black is probably better. And we'll take this Erigaisi game and switch it out as our main game to replace the Shanklin game that's finished. I mean, let's say congrats to Shanklin and Merzin on a tied first place in this event. Certainly, they each played a very good event. I've got a question whether blindfold chess practice helps improve calculation depth. Probably. I don't know for sure, but probably. Does Arjun have chances to win his game? Small chances at the moment, Laura. The position's certainly not dead. There's some imbalances. But if you look at Bardia's position, it's very, very devoid of problems, right? Neither a terrible weakness in the pawn structure, nor a really bad piece, nor an area of the board where he's squished by Arjun's space. There's no objective advantage to speak of, right? So anything that Arjun would do, he would have to, conjure up via outplaying from this position here. It's possible, but Dineshvar is a pretty good player, and his position is good, and it's also a little bit on the equal side. So I'd say the winning chances are pretty sparse. Yeah. Merles, how do you know that Merzin can win the event and Shanklin can't? Did Merzin win 4 games with black? Let's see. 1, 2. He only won 2 games with black. So it's the opposite. Sam could win the tournament, but Merzin couldn't because Sam has won 3 games with black. Bardia has won 1, 2, 3, 4 games with black. Every single one of his wins was with black. That's insane, right? I mean, already 3 black wins for Sam and 1 with white was a lot. 4 black wins for Dineshvar. So if he draws this game with Arjun, he would get first place. On tiebreak, I mean, it doesn't really mean much. I was told that the first tiebreak in this tournament is head-to-head. Second tiebreak is number of wins with black, which is ridiculous, but it is there, and that's what's gonna determine it, since none of these players beat each other. And the final tiebreak would be performance rating. So I think Dineshvar has like the best possible tiebreaks pretty much with 5 black wins. Let's see about Arjun. Arjun has 1 black win, 2 black wins. So if he wins the game and ties with Sam and Mersian, then Sam will win the tournament. If Dineshvar draws, then he will win the tournament. I mean, kind of pointlessly off of a tiebreak that means really nothing. So, after rook g3, will queen takes d4 be hanging? Yes, but queen takes h6 is also hanging, and Dineshvar decided not to trade the d pawn for the h pawn. So he played king h8. Had he played queen d4, queen h6 would follow, and then white's threatening knight f6 check. And I think he's rightly not particularly tempted by this position. I think black might be able to still defend this, but it looks pretty unpleasant. No reason to put ourselves through it if we're black. So king h8 played. I think performance rating would be a fine tiebreak if you have to do tiebreaks, but I'm also fine with people just saying that they're tied. I don't understand why everyone thinks that every tie has to be broken. I mean, I think I'm very opposed to boring draws. I've been accused of being a zealot in the war against draws, but I don't actually believe that every draw and every tie needs to be broken. I think that's perfectly fine as long as, you know, as long as people play it, it's perfectly fine to sometimes have co-champions and so forth. It's reasonable. For example, I think like the last several World Championship matches that were tied, right? Ding versus Nepo, and Carlsen versus Caruana, and Carlsen versus Karyakin. I think rapid tiebreaks in a classical world championship, completely stupid. They should either be just called co-champions and just stop there, or what I would do, which I think is the best with the world champion, is say neither of them is world champion. Say this year there's no world champion. Nobody has shown themselves to be better than anybody else. So basically, people sometimes talk about what should happen in terms of like a draw, like do you have to beat the champion to become champion? If it's a draw, does the champion remain champion? Do you have to defeat them as the challenger? But I actually think each player should have to win in order to become champion. So instead of going into the tournament with somebody having draw odds and one player has this extra pressure on them to win a game and the other player can just draw, they each have the pressure that they need to win a game to become world champion. And you know how you can get FIDE on board with this is you say FIDE, each player gets the second place prize if the match is tied. And FIDE keeps the difference between first and second place. They add it to their $5 million fee, you know? So you just say empty throne, nobody could do it, nobody could win. Sutovsky can keep the money. And, you know, better luck next year, chess players. So that's correct, Swap for Prez. The top players need to play at least 2 opens. The FIDE circuit question you asked, yes. Hey, do we have a raid? Thank you for the raid. Oh, a big raid. Sorry. Welcome, folks. I was answering lots of questions there. All right, let's shout out Metharina. I often type these wrong. But thank you so much for the raid. Greetings and welcome, folks. Metharina, I'm afraid I don't know your stream, so if you'd like to give a little blurb, or one of your raiders can do it for you if you don't like saying nice things about yourself, if you're too humble for it. Raiders, if you could give us a little blurb about Metharina stream so my viewers know whether or not to click on this little purple heart and follow, that would be appreciated. I'm inviting you to advertise. And if you're wondering what we're doing here, we're doing a tournament commentary. We're watching the final round of a really top-level chess tournament. In fact, this fellow right here, Arjun Erigaisi with the white pieces, is one of the hottest chess players on the circuit right now. He's just turned 20 years old, and he's number 6 in the world rankings. And he lost a game early on in this tournament. One exciting thing about Arjun Erigaisi, there are many, but one exciting thing about him is that he's like the chess player who plays the most chess games, period, of any chess player. He's always playing. He doesn't ask for fancy conditions. He doesn't play in these invitational tournaments for 5 or 10 top players to sit around and draw with each other. He plays in open tournaments like this with all the other players in the world, and he fights and he fights and he fights and he takes risks, and it's a beautiful thing to watch. And this tournament's been pretty exciting from his perspective, from our perspective watching him, because he had a shock defeat in round 2, which can happen because all these other players are good too, and Arjun plays riskily and gives them chances to beat him. So he had a shock defeat in round 2, and he's been chasing and chasing and chasing to catch up ever since then. And right now he's half a point behind the leaders. He's playing one of the leaders here, and he's got to beat him in the last round to win the tournament. Queen e5, threatening big old checkmate in one move. f6. And she moves on to another outpost on c5. So you see what I mean about, for those who've been watching for a while, about how Arjun would have to, create the weaknesses. He's got to generate something from which to win. He has nothing at the moment. He's got to create it. So he's poking, he's prodding, he's trying to find some flaws, some weaknesses that he can make in Black's camp. A very humble streamer who usually plays chess at a 1400 level. Awesome. Thanks, HVVBot. Yeah, I mean, if Black was forced to move some pawns, they've moved the right pawns, Fritz, right? Because the black squared pawns are going to cover the dark squares, and the light squared bishop is going to cover the light squares in between. So for the moment, not much of a weakness has been created. Not much of a weakness. And I think Black's mainly choosing whether to put the queen or bishop on this juicy square. This is the best square Black has on the board here on d5, if my highlight would be allowed. And that's a really good square. Maybe also calculating the desperado bishop takes h3, opening up this attack. That leads to some madness. Probably after knight d6, it's refuted though, right? If the bishop retreats, we take the rook. If the rook moves, we take the bishop. If the rook attacks the knight to try and save the bishop, then worst fate of all, we take the queen. So, yeah, bishop takes h3. That's only 1 second of consideration. And then back to bishop d5 or queen d5. b6. Warlockinator approved. Okay, so I think that Warlockinator's bait idea is that if you take this hanging pawn that's dangled right in the nose of your queen, right? Then after bishop d5, you lose your stuff. But okay, I mean, Arjun's not a baby. He's really young, but he was not born yesterday. He's not going to be hanging a piece like that. Especially when it's so obvious, you know, a trap like that. I mean, how do you sell that you didn't see that your pawn on c6 was hanging or something like that? I don't know. I don't see how to make this into a trap. So I think the queen will back off just fine. I stand by that the position's still equal. Let's click over to Salem versus Volkadov for a moment. Over here, see how that's going. Rook d7, rook d3, bishop e4. Okay, the knight can't take because if rook takes rook. But where's this bishop headed? I mean, I guess f5, g6, this area to defend the king against white's attempted attack based on space. Yeah. Because it feels like white's trying to use their space to attack the black king, right? So this bishop, it seemed to be on an amazing square radiating across the whole board, but maybe he just wants to bring it for some added defense to the king side. Patrick, you want to sack again? You are a sacking maniac, Patrick. A maniac, I tell you. Always sacking everything, huh? You like to attack. Yeah, no, we can see. Okay. I didn't love giving up that pawn. I mean, let me think. My rook is attacked, my mate is attacked, huh? Okay. I'm greedy. You like attacking, and I'm greedy. Let's check like this to cover the mate. And after g3, let's play like the greediest move you've ever seen. You can't have my e6 pawn. No. No coconuts for you. Seems pretty insane. I'm hanging my stuff when I already have a lot of stuff. Queen takes d1. Merles points out just too much stuff hanging. All right. We resign and take it all back. Abysmal. Abysmal. Okay. What else could black do about Patrick's madness? I hate giving you my e6 pawn. I hate it. All right, time to accept fate. So you get it. Try and take this out of the way. Try to trade queens. She just bops away laughing. Ay, ay, ay. I could go here, but it's just kind of repeating. And I hate to repeat myself. Do enough of that with the kids. All right, Patrick, I accept that I can't quite refute your idea, even though it's terrible and loses for white. I won't be the one to show you why. Perhaps Elise will. Okay, let's check out Elise's idea. Elise says queen e5 might cover some more squares. There you go. Elise is the chess player for you. She is taking care of your silly, well, not silly, just very Patrick of you to sack like that. It's not silly or anything. It's just how you do it. And black will later demonstrate that rooks are better than minor pieces in the endgame, which I'm going to guess you already know, so we'll stop our variation here. Okay, so live position here, bishop e4 played. Oh man, Patrick still don't care. You don't really want to spend like 20 minutes losing that endgame to us, do you, Patrick? I think I can beat you in that endgame. You think that position's okay? Aye, Patrick. Aye, 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 Patrick. Do you know what's going to happen to these pawns because your knight doesn't move as fast as a rook? Yes, you have a lot of pawns. Watch them go. Watch them go. These pawns are temporarily yours. One of the terrible things about this position is that black can play rook takes bishop and win as well. In fact, I mean, like, even here, this, wouldn't necessarily be bad technique to just do this. And then just go take everything, because it's so unquestionable with just the knight. Rook g3. That's the move I expected, but we didn't get to talk about it yet. Rook g3. So the idea is to just keep targeting the dark squares. Looking for something. Everybody's looking for something. Most of them are just looking for draws, but these two are looking for a game. Your favorite rook endgames are the ones where you have both of the rooks. None of these players are invited, Hubskirt. It's an open for players over 2,500. Anyone over 2,500 just fills out an application form, and then I think they all get accepted and they all play. Bishop f5. Yeah, I thought that was the direction that Shamsidin was looking in. This is going to be quite an event for Volkodov, who won that game against Hans yesterday. Volkodov started off the tournament with 5 draws in a row against 2,700s. Then he won 3 games in a row against 2,700s, or 2,680, whatever, close enough. So his performance rating is well over 2,800 right now. Well over 2,800. The challenger section is probably decently strong too, yeah. So he couldn't take and take and take because his bishop was hanging, right? And his checkmate was hanging. So with bishop f5, white has to be careful. Depending where you put the queen, black might be able to take your pieces here. Yes! Awesome, Alex. I hope it's beautiful out wherever you're chopping. I saw the game Scott post. We played through it, and we didn't notice Hans blundering. We just thought that black was better and won the game. They played the endgame relatively quickly. There was, like with this game, there was no clock showing for that board, so we don't know what the time situation was, but we could extrapolate that for sure, based on the other games, that at least one of them had a ton of time on the clock, and probably both of them. So they played it quickly. But let me ask you this, Scott Post. This is one of the most important things to ask yourself with all the games of GMs that one looks at, right? Yeah, you looked at it with the engine on, right? So that's why you don't understand the game. It ruins everything, right? I was going to ask you, did you play through the game without an engine and notice a mistake? if you play through a game without an engine and notice a mistake, then you can start talking about maybe there was a blunder or something, okay? But if you've looked at a game with an engine, you're never allowed to say anything about the players because you have no idea what it would have been like to find the moves on your own. I don't care if it's pawn takes queen. You have to assume you wouldn't have seen it. You would have just sat there going, what does the engine say? You know, and you would have blundered the same queen. So, yeah. That's the question. If you think it was a blunder, it has to be you who thinks it, not an engine, not a commentator who was using an engine, right? Like you watch a YouTube video and you're like, oh man, you know, so-and-so posted a video about how so-and-so blundered. But what if that YouTuber just used an engine to analyze the game and then said there was a blunder? Doesn't count. None of that counts. None of it counts. It's only a blunder if a reasonable, you know, human should have seen it. And once you've looked with an engine, you've seen nothing, so you can't comment. You have to understand it's disrespectful towards the players to say that they've blundered when they haven't blundered. This is one of the reasons I'm up in arms about all the engine stuff. You know? You've got lightning attacks on GM blunders and gaffes. True, not over the board. It's only via the chat. Because, you know, you're watching games with engines on. No bueno. All right. So bishop f5 played, and Salem is thinking carefully about where to go here. They should be pretty low on time. Let's check if there's a board with a clock on it that we could use to judge. 30 minutes versus 10. B6. Retreated. Queen d5. Came back from g3. See? Nothing going on there. Whoa! And now bishop takes h3 lands. Arjun tried so hard to fight, but did he lose a pawn? What has he played? He just doubled rooks. He's threatening knight takes f6. Pawn takes f6, rook e8. Knight takes f6, rook e3. Knight takes d5, rook c3, knight takes c3. Or rook e1, queen e1. Okay, I think he may genuinely be threatening knight f6 if the bishop moves. The bishop defends e8 enough, though. So now on knight f6, there's gf6, and he's down a pawn. Queen b4 played, poking, looking for a weakness, twisting and turning, maybe knight c3 introduced. But he is down a pawn, is Arjun, and he is struggling now. If Dineshvar could win this game, he would still get sole first. It did not seem a possibility at any point this game until this moment. But if that was a moment of uncautiousness, of incaution, of what's the antonym of caution? Incaution? I don't rightly know. Somebody help me out with English. But if that was a moment where Arjun's attention slipped for a moment, then this could be an opportunity for Dineshvar to collect another golden point and just continue to skyrocket his position here. Yeah, it's not brazen or bold or something like that. Recklessness, maybe, but that's not what I mean. I mean a moment where you forget to pay attention, not because you're reckless or bold or brave or something like that, just a momentary inattention. That could be the word for it, inattention. If incaution is a word, then incaution is what I'm looking for. Carelessness is close as well. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate the assist. Could Arjun get chances because of the time situation? Laura asks. He would need something going for him on the board, I think, Laura, because there's a 30-second increment, and Dineshvar is a really good player, as I've probably said multiple times today and in this tournament. So, you know, a reversal would be a real shock. You know, normally you'd have to, you know, build up something. You'd have to have some weakness, some play, some threats, some weak squares, something. And he plays a very solid looking move, but it might allow knight c3, bunch of trades, and queen b6. Maybe Arjun could get his pawn back. And oddly, if he got his pawn back, then he'd have stuff to play with on the queen side. His queen would be amazing on b6. So, okay, it looks like I'm being given permission to use the word incaution. So, yeah, so he may have had a little moment of incaution here, and the incaution may cost him. Where's Kostya? We've got another Kostya linguistic moment here. It could cost him. It could cost him some juicy rating points and, you know, his position in this tournament. Just a little bit of cash, not that he really cares. Against knight c3, I don't think he'll have queen a2. Knight c3 will hit the queen and the pawn. Arjun's now thinking a little bit, seeing if he can't get anything out of this moment. Did Kostya do which wrap, Elise? Maybe knight c3, a5.
Yeah, what time are you supposed to pick up the kids?
16 minutes from now.
Okay.
I'm on it. Is the little still sleeping?
Yeah, but I don't wake her up.
What?
Because it's 4:15.
Remember the #1 principle of babies?
I'm just going to open the light. I'm not going to wake her up. How about that?
Okay.
I'm going to make it less dark in there.
The Dojo rap. You don't know who wrote the Dojo rap, Elise. Knight c3 played. Yeah, a5's not going to be good. I could show you why, but maybe I should help Elise guess who wrote the Dojo rap. Check out Joe. He's a Reddit bro, likes to edit posts, and he starts to gloat when he gets the most upvotes or likes. Yeah, he's really hyped, really psyched, because the clout is really tight and the work is really light. His training plan is the first thing your eye sees. Got more. Wrote it? He's got more follows than my boy Aragaisi, who's playing right now, right in front of us, right? Opinions on Magnus, Hans, and Karyakin. Who cheated who? Which engine to be packing? He got blocked by Short, ignored by Dvorak, but he can't be wrong. He scored a like from Truong. He's got lightning attacks on GM blunders and gaffes. True, not over the board. It's only via the chat. Still, his 7-year plan ensures the last laugh. Distractions detract from any actual actions. Excuses are useless. He rues his inaction. Awaits satisfaction. The status of Magnus. Knight c3 played. So we have a suggestion of queen f7 here. Rook takes. Bishop. Queen f7's been played. Laura's been waiting for a chance for Aragaisi to maybe win the game. I think the chance has come, Laura. Because these white pieces are all over black now. Ugh. Oh my god, maybe losing a pawn is the best thing that ever happened to dude. Maybe could take with the rook, and against rook takes, take with the queen, queen b6, check this out, grab the pawn, hang the bishop, and try to give a perpetual. But there's queen h3 if you ever go queen h4. So it's a little hard to believe in a perpetual here, right? So I don't quite believe that. Let's see what's happening. Queen f7, rook e8 check. He's putting pressure on his clock too, as Arjun. He thought for a couple minutes after rook b8 on knight c3, and he looked a few moves ahead, and now he can play quickly and put the pressure on. And Dineshvar is in all kinds of trouble here. Oh my lord. If you don't understand queen f7, I mean, his queen was attacked and she had to go somewhere, right? If she went somewhere random, he was going to trade twice here and take the b pawn. So I was wondering about queen a5 myself. But, I mean, queen f7 makes sense from the perspective of, you know, trying to defend e8 so the rook can stay on b6. But now, hey, salut, ça va? Bien dormi? Tu veux voir les échecs? Get the what?
We need containers.
Containers. Yes. Oh, yes. Thank you. Good call. All right. So we had a trade, and I thought maybe rook e7, but Arjun just plays queen here first. I think there may be a concern that rook e7, queen f8. There could be some awkwardness or something maybe. So goes queen d6 first. Hey, folks. Thanks for the raid. Thanks for the raid, Chess on Earth, and everybody else. I don't have the hands to type the shout out right now. If there's any mod, please give a shout out to Chess on Earth. C'est bien? Tu vas aller à maman? Non.
I'll go get the kids with her, David.
You sure?
Yeah, put her in the stroller.
Okay. Oh, elle veut pas me laisser, regarde. Oh.
Should we go see Yaya and Baba? Let's go. Come on, Zayden.
Tu vas aller chercher les grands? Tu vas aller chercher les grands? Tu vas aller dehors? Tu veux sortir? Avec maman? Oh, papa est là. Elle rôde dans la cuisine comme toujours. Naughty, naughty papa. Oh là là.
Let's go see Yaya.
Okay, the Neshvar saves the rook. And now I can deliver the shout out. Chess on Earth. Greetings and welcome, Raiders. We are in the final minutes of the Sharjah Open. This has been a 9-round, 9-day grueling affair. Some of the players were so grueled by the whole thing that they agreed draws, you know, in the very opening. Move 10, we had the famous Berlin draw. Boo, boo. You know, this stupid symmetrical boo, boo. So some of them were wiped out. It was tough. But, you know, there's somebody who's never wiped out, and that's my boy Aragaisi. So he's here playing to the last pawn or the break of dawn. And he's down a pawn, unfortunately, but he's finally got his pieces into good position. So if Laura Schmidt is still around, this is the moment that she's been waiting for. See what Arjun can do. I think he's afraid that rook e7, queen f8 is kind of like a tie-up. He can't work with. Yeah, so he tries something else. The knight. Yes, the knight. It definitely needed some improvement, right? Checking out these squares here. They're not looking juicy. So there comes the knight. It wants to go through b6. But even more than going through b6, it wants Bardia to save the b pawn, and it wants to come through c5. I'm not the best at knights, but I recently worked through a book of knight endgames, or half a book of knight endgames, and that was sufficient to help me know what a knight wants, what a knight needs, what makes a knight happy. And this knight actually wants the pawn to escape so it can go to c5. That's the truth. Oui? Ah, t'es toute prête là pour sortir, hein? Bravo! Est-ce que t'as tes chaussures? T'as les chaussures? Oui. Ouais, je les vois. Tes belles chaussures. I packed it away. I put it in the cupboard with snacks. What's that?
Why did you quote that song?
Why did I quote that song? I don't know. To make you start singing?
Yeah.
But now you have to sing it with a knight instead of with a girl.
What a knight wants, what a knight needs.
Yep. Oh, C5. Daneshvar is not cowed. He might be under 5 minutes on the clock. He might be under pressure against one of the 5 best players in the world. But he knows not to get his pawns stuck and blockaded on terrible light squares while the knight dances on the dark ones. Au revoir. Bonne promenade. À bientôt. T'es prête à rouler, là? So, knight a4, c5. He tries to fight back. The bishop wants to capture that villainous knight, but surely it's about to bop over to b6. Then there's going to be rook c6, queen d8. Ay, ay, ay. Arjun makes his move, takes the pawn. Thank you, Evan. Rewriting the song for me. Beautiful. Creating outposts. So queen d8 is coming, no? What's the plan? Rook e6. It's a little bit of a desperate feel to that. Maybe queen b8 is better than queen d8. Come on, Arjun, tell me that I saw something. Queen b8 is going to be better than queen d8 in case of rook e6, because you can take, and cover a checking diagonal towards your king. Then you want to take here and run. Or maybe d5, d6, d7. You know, check here, and there's no queen e5. Oh, there's moves coming in, folks. There's live moves coming in. Rook c6. Queen b8. Got one. Here, trade it. Push it. Push it. Tell me that I'm right to not take the pawn. Just push. 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 Oh, when the pawn's on d6 for a moment, you'll be perpetualed. Not certain. He should think. He's got 25 minutes on the clock. He should think a little bit, Arjun. Do not be in such a rush. Think a little much. Takes the pawn. He's playing very fast as Arjun. Very fast. Playing very fast. I mean, I could believe he's so good that he's seeing everything at this speed, maybe. But then you don't need to play faster and put extra pressure on the opponent, do you? Well, no, I guess if you see a defense but it's hard to find, then yeah, you can play fast to put more pressure on them sometimes. Who am I or anybody to question Arjun Erigaisi? This guy didn't just squeeze water out of a stone just now. It was like he squeezed water out of a stone that was sitting on him, and the stone weighed more than him. If queens were off, it would be a win for sure, Patrick. Yeah, with queens on, it should also be a win. Honestly, it should just be a win. We haven't updated the evaluations here, have we? Not for a while. White's winning, in theory, I think. Man, it took a million moves and a million games, but Arjun Erigaisi rises back up to the top. Boom! Oh my God. How about these guys with their absolute mind-boggling game? What are the teenagers doing? Trade. Queen here to threaten knight f5? Has the feeling like it won't be impactful enough. Just backs off. No knight f5, queen h6. Just backs off. Gets kicked back some more. Have at you. Good Lord. Zemlyansky is just trying to give him the beat down here. And they're raging back and forth. Ay, ay, ay. Now the question is knight g5. Rook takes g5. Bishop takes e4. He goes for knight g5. Uh-oh. Spaghetti. Yo. What's he going to do? Throw h6 in for some kind of a tempo trick? But then h6, the black king's happy to hide behind it with king h7. What's the plan? Rook g5, bishop e4. It's not really anything sneaky to do. Looks like white might lose. I'm going to guess that black is better, but maybe winning. Knight g5, queen g3, knight e4, h takes g6. I'll just show you guys one other random line here, hitting this piece. Actually, black could even ignore it and win the endgame like this. This will be simpler than the line I was going to show you, but maybe less instructive. We hit this. If the king defends the rook, we take this first. Check again. Oh, just, it's like Pac-Man now. Oh. Oui. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. She's going to hold them off for a little bit so we get to watch a little bit more of the tournament. Knight g5. Rook g5 played. Bishop e4 played. Queen takes. Queen takes. Takes. All right. Obviously, there's still some chances in a time scramble. Tricky knight. Open king. But technically... Oh, if fg, there's rook here. And if queen takes, there's queen e5. Oh, there's no satisfactory way to retake this pawn, is there? Because here, check, here, takes, here, check, here, takes, boom. So, still very messy. I'm not going to put black's winning if they can't even recapture this pawn. As long as white has a knight, a pawn, and some threats against the black king, I'm just going to call it better for white. It might be like very close to winning. It might be winning to a computer, but for a human, it's not yet like a clear... Ivan with 5 out of 8. I mean, his performance rating is 2,700, I think, probably. I think he's performing over 2,700, probably, this 13-year-old FM. Yeah, I mean, to some extent, it feels like you have to take the pawn. Maybe you can take check and, like, back off with your king. The thing is, if you go here, there's this. Okay, that holds. Yeah, okay, so you could go here. You could take and then back off, give the 8th rank, and then you have this rook f1 threat coming, which would be mate. If white had time to go queen b4 and a4 or something, then the king could be snug and there'd be all kinds of play. But yeah, maybe that's good enough. Okay, so my instinct is f takes g6, rook check, king h8. If he goes for that and we don't notice a problem with it, then I will probably say that black is winning. But we'll see. Right now they're here. H takes g6. Let's check over on Aragaisi. King h7. King h2. Getting on the diagonal with the queenaroo. So now he can kind of put the pawn on f3, queen on d6, and then just wait for the weight of the c pawn to hand him the game. It's very, very good. Very, very good for him. What did I put for evaluation for this game? I said white's currently winning. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Queen e4 centralizing. Nice. This stops f3 because of checks and checks. So maybe he's got to go queen g3. I'm not sure. Yeah, queen g3. Queen f5. With an idea of perpetual there plus this. So if you go b4, check here, check, and you can block, but your queen's been put into a weird way, and your life squares became super weak, right? Bishop here, and good luck winning. Okay, that's the live position. Actually, I should say white's better instead of winning. I don't know for sure yet. It's right on the border. You know, the knight's still stuck off on that side of the board, and the king's under attack. And Dineshvar is not folding, by the way, folks. You see, he hasn't gone down to 2 minutes, 1 minute, anything like that. He's hanging in there. He's still banging out some moves, finding some chances. Super tough. Super tough. Rook d8 was played, going after that back rank instead of recapturing. Nice move. Nice move. Now he takes here. Now against queen b7, which somebody mentioned, there's rook here, queen takes, here. That's nothing. Sorry, I can just try to make moves to show the positions to all of you. The king manages to hide, and trading rooks doesn't help white. FG6, but is his rook covering the first rank enough for him to grab this pawn? If he can grab this pawn, that'll help keep him playing the game. Queen b7. I don't have rook f7 anymore. Oh, you're telling me something about queen b7 before, huh? Okay. Yeah, so this move looks like it was a strong move. And yeah, he's taking on b4. Okay, so this game's still going. I mean, white is teetering on the precipice, but still going. Salem, how's he doing? Queen f3, got traded, got taken. And shelters g7 with the bishop. Queen's got to defend the knight. She does her job. Black's trying to fight out of the bad dark squares. Gets forked! Gets out of the fork. Puts the queen on d5, crushing white to hell. White finds some more fanciful move. This is the live position. Does black have this? I mean, understand white still has 2 forked pieces, so this is some desperado. This is some desperado moment. I mean, he could even conceivably go for rook f2. It seems insane, but maybe he could go all out here. Oh, Merles wants rook f2. Merles, by the way, that's absolutely Merles' style, is to not worry about playing loose moves and to just, you know, play very concrete conversions. I used to do that when I was a kid too, and now, nope. Too scared, can't calculate. White has h5 ideas as well, says Patrick. Yeah, but h5 is not enough to stop black from playing queen takes e5, for example, right? Like this move here that I was saying could perhaps be played to just be the solid move. If you go h5, right, black just takes. You know, whatever. They're happy to just simplify like that. Get the opposite colored bishops off the board. I don't know who's we, but white's not good here. As I've heard 77 peaceful, there's not going to be a tiebreaker. It's just tie breaks. They just give it to whoever has won a game head-to-head against somebody else, or whoever's got the most wins with black, etc. And the third tiebreak is performance rating. Okay, no, keep going. Queen h4 check. I move the king. Wait, I could also trade queens. I must be misunderstanding something too. I don't know. Is it just winning for black because the rook is better than the knight? Oh, I'm saying your pawns are going to fall on the queen side later? You've got a knight against a rook. Wait a minute. Patrick, you're like a 2100 player. Has no one ever told you, or have you never noticed that rooks are better than knights? Am I about to be the first person to tell you that? Patrick is super, super strong, by the way, folks. Super, super strong. Always suggesting good variations, but you don't mind exchanges. Wow, but literally doesn't realize that rooks are better than knights. It is true also that Patrick doesn't play a lot of endgames. Patrick plays mostly middle games, and in middle games, the rooks are not as much better than the knights and bishops as they are in the endgame. The best phase of the rook is the endgame, which is the phase of the game that Patrick never plays. So actually, shocking as it is, I can understand how Patrick never noticed. I guess I can understand how Patrick never noticed that rooks were better than knights. Wow. Incredible. Okay, so there's some more moves in the game. Rook g5 played, defending the bishop, queen b7, and h5. Okay, the move rook f5 looks hyper devastating here. Volkodov plays it. This might be the goodnight sweet prince moment. Oh, he tries to keep it up. I mean, black can trade the rook and then move the bishop. Rook takes e5 is very solid as well. You go rook g5, queen g5, right? Bishop here, and then on h6, just, you know, just do what? I guess bishop back to g6. White gets this pawn, and the game goes on. You're up a full rook. But if you're worried about the raging of the opposite colored bishop, and you're like Patrick and you don't know that rooks are any good, then you could maybe go here, here, and here instead. And then just keep your bishop. And now you've got an extra bishop, but the position's less dynamic, right? I wasn't even roasting you, Patrick. I was just like, wow. You are by far the strongest player I've ever met who hadn't heard that rooks were better than knights. That was just incredible. I've never seen anyone get that good without knowing that. I mean, I would be surprised, you know, if you didn't know that an outside passed pawn could win a king and pawn endgame, for example. But rook versus knight, I mean, I would be surprised for like someone to reach 1500 without knowing that a rook was better than a knight. You know, it's like, wow. Arisha says maybe there's one last trick here. Here, here, here. That would be the most insane blunder of all time, which I just did. Aritra is very alert. Nice one, Aritra. Okay, so if we did this, we'd have to just move the bishop right away. He played rook g5. And then he didn't move the bishop away. Wow. Stubborn bishop. Holding its ground. No. Patrick's not messing with me, Clorgy. I believe Patrick. Wait, white didn't even take the bishop. That's insane. I think queen f5 could be played as well as king g8 here. The point of queen f5 is that if this queen comes here, you go check. If king g3, you take this bishop, and if king here, you go mate. Okay, but he played king g8. He's winning. We're going to update this one to black is winning for sure. And let's check on Arjun. This is going to be like quite the performance for Volkanov. Holy moly. Where's Arjun? Here he is. Queen f5, b4? No, he hasn't played yet. He's been thinking for almost 15 minutes. Oh. Wow. So, yeah, it is very tough here. He does not know how to handle this pawn versus this check. Wow. He gave back the pawn. He gave back the pawn to bring the knight back into the game. This is... Oh, he's going to try and win the game for a third time, Arjun. Back to squeezing that stone. Oh, my lord. I was right to downgrade it from winning. Arjun agreed. After some thought. Yeah, I mean, he can certainly still play. But it's a smallish edge now, right? It's like theoretically you're better, but oh, it's hard on an open board. The knight versus this bishop, and the king's well covered, so you can't. If the area where you were better was the king side, and you could attack the king with your knight plus your pawn majority, that would feel more like a job for a queen and knight. But you're supposed to use an outside pass pawn against a bishop. That bishop's laughing, dude, laughing. In fact, I'm going to go out on a limb here with my eval, actually. I think it's equal. I don't even think that he's better. I think it's just equal. Could be wrong, but that's my take. So that's where we're at. You know, we're here for my take and then for you guys to trash it and be like, David, you missed your 7th mate in 1. Okay, no moves here. Feels like the moment where you might resign as white. You know, down a whole rook. How's this game going? This one's spicier. Okay. He suggests maybe I'll try to win like this because it's going to be hard to attack this king and hard to pin down the queen for a trade. I was thinking, you know, something like queen g2 going for rook f1 would be technically desirable. Trading off one rook, then your king's really safe and you can push the pawns more easily. Or your king's much, much, much safer. Like 75% safer. But against queen g2, there was queen here, maybe. Yeah, there was this move. Then this. No bueno. So he plays rook e8. For one thing, defending the pawn, defending this intrusion square, and preparing to do this. Could white grab one more pawn here with queen b7? It's so hard to keep a game under control in these wide open positions without structures. Queen g2, he's going for rook f1. He says no. No rook f1, please. Now queen h4, there's just rook h8 to deal with that. So there's nothing really to sniff over there on the h file. Yeah, we can't count up Zemlyansky's points until the game's over. That's a big mistake that a lot of chess players do, is sort of like counting their points before they've hatched. But certainly, I think he's playing at a 2800 level, and he's a 14-year-old FM, right? Or I don't even know if he's 13 or 14. He turns 14 sometime in 2024. He's born in 2010. He's at +2 right now. 2600s. Whoops, sorry, hang on. Uh-oh, I hope I didn't really mess up the screen capture there. Maybe a little bit. Okay, the average rating of his opponents is 2650, and he's +2 over 8 rounds, which is 100 points more. So his performance is 2750 so far this tournament. So not quite 2800, but pretty huge. Okay, I'm having confirmation from chat that Salem resigned. And it's showing Volkov with 6.5 out of 9. So that is official. Folks, let's just take a moment for Shamsid and Volkov's tournament. I think he just caught up and tied for first place with Mergen and Shankland. Wow. With black. How many black wins does Volkov have? Probably only 3 because they were all in a row at the end. No, only 2. 4 wins with 2 with black, 2 with white. So Volkov, Salem, ironically, is the lowest rated player he played all tournament. He basically played 8 2700s until the last round when he was in the best position of the whole tournament. And finally, he got paired with Salem. That's because the 2700s were dotted throughout the tournament. They weren't particularly doing that well in the tournament. I mean, you can look at the top board, you know, last round it was 2600 versus 2600. This round 2600 versus 2600. Board 2, you've got Bardia Daneshvar under 2600. So in the final round, Shamsiddin gets his lowest rated opponent of the whole tournament. Now, Volkov is somebody who did perform over 2800 here. He ties for first place, starts off with 5 draws in a row against 2700s, then wins 3 in a row, and then beats 2630 Salem. And he is gaining a boatload of rating points. See if I can find Volkov here and see where this takes him. Somebody else who just entered this tournament barely under 2600, and now it's like, oh, are you suddenly 2800, or is it just a good week? And I guess he's about 20 years old. I don't see his rating here. I don't see the live update for him. But, ooh la la, Uzbekistan, folks. Uzbekistan. This is like a chess superpower here. Abdusadarov, Yakuboyev, Volkov. Not having a good tournament right now, but I still believe in him. Sindarov. Man, oh man. You know, and these guys, they're the world champions. They're the world champions. They're the reigning Olympiad world champions. And they were, you know, a bunch of 2,500 rated kids last time around. Now they're like, you know, 26 to 2,700 rated super GMs. Okay, Evan says Volkov was plus 27 for the event before this round, and he'll gain another 5.8 points for this round. So, you know, we'll see him at 26, 24 perhaps after this. But the form he showed here was incredible. I mean, we gotta wait and see what his next tournament will be. He ties for first, gets a healthy payday. And let's check back in on Aragaisi and Bardia. Bishop g6. Uh-oh. How do you defend everything? Whew. Queen e2. She defends everything. Queen d4. Black is centralized. Black's queen and bishop are large and in charge. White covers some stuff with the knight. a5. Yeah, it's equal. It's equal. Yes, nothing good. That happens occasionally. I'm trying to do that less and less. I apologize for each time I did it. If Daneshvar can win this game as black, he'll win sole first place. If Daneshvar draws this game as black, I think Daneshvar will win on tiebreaks. The tiebreaks really don't matter. At this point, who would I rather have, black or white? Black, actually, yes, Patrick. I would pick black as well, just barely. I think it's very, very close to equal. So close that I'm not even going to switch it to like black is better based on David would maybe want to be black. I'm more or less agnostic to it. But yeah, the bishop's like all over the board. And I prefer, honestly, having the safer king in a queen endgame versus having the outside pass pawn. Maybe that's insane, but you know, even if white makes a pass pawn, I've got 2 long-range pieces. I don't really worry about that. I worry about that in a king and pawn ending, a knight and pawn ending, but as black, I'm not playing a knight and pawn ending, so I'm not so worried about it. With queens on the board, I value the king safety a little bit higher. It eases the difficulty of playing the game, right? Like the white player has to manage king safety while trying to improve the situation on the queen side far away. If you're this player here and somehow things start to progress for the opponent on the other side of the board, to play for a perpetual check is a relatively easy escape valve to try and hold a game. So me personally, I find it a little bit easier to play like that as black. And even without the queens, like if we traded queens here with queen e4 and white took for some reason, I could just go bishop b1 after the queen trade, right? We trade queens, then I go bishop b1, bishop c2, I guess a3, b4, the game goes on, but I would still draw that without any trouble. Yeah. That's correct, Evan. It's 3 in a row, Evan. Some of these people are on their second tournament already. Because there was the Dubai Police Open, then there's the Sharjah Masters, and then there's the Dubai Open another 2 days later. So some people are playing all of them. Rajabov, depending on your definition of playing, is playing back-to-back events. They've agreed to a draw here after knight to g2. And Bardia Daneshvar, wow, holds it together. What a test. What a test against Arjun. That's a draw that hopefully folks find interesting and not boring. It was a very dry position at times, but you saw how you can still look for chances in those positions, right? Rajabov is there because there's a new rule for the Azeri team that to play on the Azeri team in the Olympiads, you have to have played at least 15 tournament games in the calendar year or to represent Azerbaijan in any other events. So he came out of not playing chess. He says he's not retired. He came out of not playing chess to play some games. I think Bardia wins the event on tie breaks. But, you know, to me, I would say Volkov, Bardia, Shanky, Murzin, 4 co-champs. You know, great tournament for all 4 of them. And is it possible that in a tournament with 9 players rated 2,700 and another 9 players rated 2080, 2680, 2690, we have 4 co-champs, none of whom are rated over 2,700, and 2 of them are rated under 2,600? Amazing slew of upsets. Mendonca picks the A-pawn off. Opens are the best, yeah. This open definitely did not align with Fabiano's claim that he gets more points in opens and opens are not any harder, tougher, or deflationary to your rating than the closed tournaments he normally plays in. I mean, just look at the ratings of the 2,700s in this event. They have just been put through the grinder by the 2,500 to 2,650 juniors. Right? You can look at 2700chess.com. Some of them don't even show up on the page anymore. You have to hit top 100 to see it. And you can just see like the red, you know, -5, -8, -12, -19. Look at Rajabov finally playing chess, you know. Sarana and Tabatabai managed to hang in there, not play too many juniors, draw a few games with each other, held onto their ratings, but they didn't win the tournament either. And if you go to top 100, you'll see some more people who dropped out of the 2700 group, right? Artemiev, ouch, right? Sevian, ouch. Fedoseev, ouch. And even further down, we'll find Esipenko, ouch. Deach, ouch. Oh no, opens are brutal, man. They're tough. How many opens has Fabi played? I mean, he's played the Grand Swiss mainly. I don't know how many other opens he's played in the last 5 years. Arjun Erigaisi finishes half a point off of the lead, and he lost a rating point, so he did pretty good there. Didn't get himself killed. But he's also super strong, you know? Like, Arjun's probably a bit underrated still, right? And he still lost rating points. So I guess he's not underrated. He's maybe underrated compared to the other 2,700 plus players. But compared to, you know, Volkodov and Daneshvar and Ivan Zemlyansky, are you kidding me? You know, there's no way that, you know, Naka and Fabi are 300 points stronger than Ivan Zemlyansky, right? 300 points stronger, they should beat him like 8-2 in a match. Good luck. Good luck. Not gonna happen. They might still be able to win the match, but you know, 5.5, 4.5 or something. Let's see if Zemlyansky can zammel one more point here. Zammeln in German is to gather. I mean, Luke Mendonca is a talented, underrated junior himself. He's not going to make it easy or anything. Collecting 2 queenside pawns was clever. The game is very, very close here still. White might be threatening rook h2 now if you just go for e3 or something, because we don't have the rooks doubled on the 8th rank to defend the h-file. Zemlya means to land in some other language, Aritra. Cool. See if you can Zemlya one more point. Queen f4. Nice move. Nice move. Actually cutting off all the territory of this queen. Is white down to rook g4, or am I missing queen d8, a square? See, it's hard to catch a queen on an open board. Very hard. Hey, hey, hey. You missed some riveting stuff about managing hats and money for kids. I'm gonna leave things there, even though it's not done. Queen d8 was maybe not a square. Rook takes b3. Oh, ay. Gives a check. Gets out of the way. Oh, Ivan landed one more blow. And now he's up a rook. He did it. He did it. D8 was not a square. That queen f4 was amazing. That queen f4 was an amazing move. Evil move. Queen f4. Did he not have this move, though, to keep going, sort of? Patrick. Queen takes f4 was losing because the knight's not as good as the rook. So black will queen the pawns using the strength of the rook. You're going to have to trust me on this at first, Patrick. But I'm going to give you a homework assignment if you want, Patrick. You want a little homework assignment? Take one of these endgames we've seen today, like such as this position here. Take a position like this and go spar it with a buddy. Play it with white and with black a couple times. This is a very, very good one. The other one was even way too easy. These Salem positions with just like a black rook on c2, too easy, okay? Try this one. The pawns are separated. You know, white has technically a pawn for the exchange. Give it a try. Play it out a couple times and see what you think. Yeah, why not? Yeah, this is like a fine endgame. It's a good example of a sparring endgame. Absolutely the kind of thing that we would give people in the dojo to do. But I think rook g4 would have kept the game going a little bit. I don't see what black had in mind against rook g4. Yeah, nothing's striking me. It even tries to win the e-pawn. What did he have in mind? Now I'm like super curious. What? There's no way you could like take and then trap the queen. She's got all kinds of room. Maybe the plan is something like this. And coming here. But I'm not fully confident. Anyway, after queen d8, this was a knockout. Oh, he was not ready for that move. And I think that should be the end of that. We're going to call it. Maybe it's already been called. I don't know. AD's Gurel lost the last round game, so he wasn't able to catapult up into the lead of the tournament. Zemlyansky is one. Yeah. Okay, there was a resignation there. We've covered all the games. We did it. I can run and be a dad again. What a tournament, folks. What a tournament it was. I assume those of you who are here with me right now, you all agreed. That's why you were here. So we had a fun time watching this Sharjah Masters together. And hopefully here in the dojo, we'll have the opportunity to cover some more good tournaments in the future like this.